drag that into Model Doc. It seems like we've gotten some new changes to the monetization, which is a part of Sandbox. Now, as you can see on screen here, this is a picture that Gary has posted yesterday, and oddly enough, he ends up posting this right after I upload the video that, if you haven't seen already, feel free to go check it out. But there is a lot of stuff that is coming to Sandbox, and there is some huge changes that are happening. And this is another one that we're probably going to end up seeing in next week's blog post. But there also has been some changes to the specific requirements, as some people have been mentioning and complaining about other different things. So we're just going to get into what this picture presents and then get into some of the changes that happened afterwards. So with this image here on screen, these are now the requirements for you if you want to have your package, which is either a game or a map, opt into the Play Fund. This has been an entirely hot topic. I know so many people within my comments have been talking about how they feel that the Play Fund is a good thing, and others that are saying that it is not a good thing. And everyone's just been kind of giving their thoughts and feelings about it. One of the biggest issues at the moment is that there is a ton of people that feel, when it comes to the current games that are on Sandbox, some of these games that are either idle clickers or some sort of Roblox slop or things like that are taking the top slots, which allows for many people to just play these games and siphon Play Fund money. Others feel that when it comes to the Play Fund, that this is just an incentive to breed the wrong type of developers who are only just making a game for money. So there's a couple of things that I think Gary is trying to combat here, and some of them include mostly anyone who is a part of a team, which is called an organization on Sandbox, which is not more than a month old, where people can just have a bunch of different organizations and crank out a bunch of garbage and then have it be enabled for the Play Fund, which then a bunch of people can see if they can try these games, and if they do play them, that they might earn money from that. Now, you have to make sure that your organization is at least a month old. This one at the top, which is released for at least a week, has been something that many people have already mentioned doesn't seem like a good idea, because there is different aspects which they feel that could be gamed with the system, which we'll get a little bit more into. But between that has kind of changed now, because release for at least a week has been completely removed according to a recent commit that was done today. As again, a lot of people probably mentioned to Gary, this isn't a good idea, and he probably thought, yeah, this is probably not a good idea either, so he removed that. You also have to make sure that your game has been played by enough people. Now, it says played by enough people, not every single day. It's just played by enough people. So if you've had over 50 people play your game, then this is a part of the criteria that has to be met so that your game could be enabled for the Play Fund. Some of these other things are pretty standard as what you would normally expect, which is that it has to have a summary, has to have a description, thumbnail, you have to pick a category for it, has some tags, at least 2 screenshots, and has a video. One of the biggest issues is that there is a good chunk of games that are on Sandbox, and I've seen these myself, where some people would just kind of have a picture of the game, but then no description, no pictures, no videos, nothing. So you really don't know what you're getting into, and this could just be seen as a low effort garbage. So thankfully with that, now there is a way to combat this if people who are trying to actively game the system by not only having organizations that they just kind of crank out 10 or 20 of them, but they have to be a certain age for them so that they can properly be a part of the Play Fund. The entire point as of right now is that monetization and trying to pay developers for the games that they create is a thing that Sandbox does provide. And I do understand that there is going to be people, both good and bad, that are going to try to use the Play Fund to their advantage. But that's another thing, because a lot of people are talking about botting and like the whole botting situation, which I talked about yesterday, and that has been clarified a bit more about what is currently going on. But it still seems like people are just thinking like, yeah, this is still going to get botted, and this is just another incentive for botting. Again, with this image, this was a couple days ago where Gary has added new bot and suspicious flags, including marking these bots so that they don't count towards the Play Fund. They don't count towards online players. So most of this criteria has to be organic. You cannot just go and artificially do this in a way to benefit you to then reach all of this stuff and then be able to monetize your game. You literally have to have players. However this is going to work? We'll see. I will say, in my opinion, this is a really good step in the right direction, as I know tons of people have been complaining about this stuff. Either way, I think that's pretty much all I have for this video. Happy Summer Games Fest Day. Hopefully we do get some games. I'm not going to hold my breath on it, but I will be co-streaming it if you are interested in that. The Twitch is linked down below. Hopefully I get to see you there. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below if this is good or bad change, and how you feel that this could either impact or benefit Sandbox. Who knows? But yeah, I'll see you then in the next one.
Bricks and Minifigs has waved the white flag as their CEO is coming out and giving his side of the story, but it's mostly coping and lies. We're going to get into it today on The Legal Mind, so we teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and specifically an attorney with almost a decade of experience in corporate law, dealing with corporate situations. And one reason why I'm doing this review for you today is I have been on the other side of the table interpreting these corporate statements, or even working with CEOs to create corporate statements and what you can and can say and put out there. Now, this is an interview that was done with Fox just today, so let's get right into it.
I go this route instead of, as people say, try to just settle Brian's collection and move on and make everyone forget it. Was that ever an option?
And that's what I said, by the way, from the beginning. I said this is something, if they had any corporate common sense, this is, of course, the CEO, Eamon McNeff, if they had any real experience and know-how and actually wanted to deal with this, they would have seen this coming a mile away, the publicity nightmare. As we're going to see here, they really didn't even have to pay the $200K because they're actually saying, hey, now we've come down to a number around $100K. So they're saying, okay, 100K. Now, that is a lot for an individual, but for a company, come on, just pay that out. The amount you've now had to incur because of this is far beyond that in value. It absolutely was not worth it. And by the way, let's also look at his body language here. He's got the slumped shoulders. He's kind of got that, thousand-eyed stare, having gone through all of this bad PR. I mean, he's absolutely defeated, tail between his legs right here.
Oh, we've been working to try and work with Mr. Mansell for a good little while. We've asked for documentation as far back as a year ago, but we continue to reach out to try and get towards a resolution with the Mansell family on this matter.
And
Okay, so let's stop there with documentation. This is a key BS move of corporate. This is how they move the ball here. They say, oh, we didn't have documentation. Well, that's not true. You even see in Reckless Ben's documentary that they had it itemized out. They, in fact, had a lot itemized out. What they probably wanted was very specific documentation. They say, okay, we want to see the, actual boxes. We want to see pictures. We want to see, the serial numbers. And this is a way that companies try to shift the blame. That doesn't mean there wasn't an inventory. That just means it wasn't what they wanted. And a lot of times companies will ask for extreme levels of documentation just because they know it's going to be a problem for you to produce that. They know you can't produce that, especially if it's not in your possession. So that is a corporate weasel word situation right out of the gate, already starting off deceptively. Before we go any further, as you guys know, I'm a lawyer, so obviously I like money. And if you guys are looking for some extra cash and you want a way to make cash that's completely legit, you guys should check out Free Cash. It's a registered German company. This is not a scam. And let me break down exactly how this works so you understand. So this involves games and surveys, and it works with these games, for example, to help them find new users. The apps and the games are willing to pay for those new users because a lot of the users end up actually liking the game and investing a lot of time in that game and even paying for things on those games. Free Cash helps out by putting some of the money that they make back in your pocket. So you're getting back what you're getting from those games. It's simple. If you already like playing app games on your phone, you already like doing surveys, you have no problem with that, you might as well sign up and try it, as you can make a completely free account with just an email and a password. It's not a way to get rich quickly. This isn't a way to make a bunch of money. It's just a way to make a little bit back and to get a little bit of actually free cash. Once again, it's completely free to try. You can scan the QR code that has come up right here, and you can click the link in the description as well as in the pinned comments. Check it out and make some free cash with freecash.com.
You and Mr. Mansell ever talk directly one-on-one?
Not as of yet. I have sent direct messages to the Mansell family and to Mr. Mansell specifically, seeking to have a sit-down meeting, meet at the table, and go over all the documentation that we have, and to be able to talk through. And from our side of things, if there have been any missteps through the transition of the store, we want to make things right. We want to do what's right by the customer.
I don't believe that for the second. I think they want to do what now is on them because of bad PR. I think this is, at this point, not something because they want to do what's right for the customer. If they wanted to do what's right, they would have settled this way before. They would have brought them to the table before. They would have gotten a professional involved. They would have hired a mediator themselves and got this done. Once again, he brings up documentation. At this point, they should not be trying to nickel and dime him. They should just be paying it out and getting this done with.
But all we asked for was documentation. And every time we ask for that up to this point, we seem to kind of then lose the connection.
And that's intentional on their part.
So you've offered Brian the inventory of sets that was in the store.
Yeah, whatever was left over, we've offered that on multiple occasions. And then, like if there was anything that had been done that was untoward by the previous franchisee, if that individual had sold more than they let on and did not pay Mr. Mansell, we've offered to compensate him for the loss of the compensation that should have been given to him. So we've tried to make multiple offers, and hopefully we'll be able to get them to the table so we can discuss it.
Now,
This is trying to though shift the burden here. I don't think they actually made good faith offers before this. I do not think that they came through and said that. They're trying to sound very reasonable. They're trying to make it sound like Mansell's being unreasonable. But at this point, there's no way I believe that they made a real offer here to actually pay him out what he's owed in return what is owed to him. I don't think that's legitimate. I think they're now saying that. I think that's the position they now have to take because publicity is totally against them. This is all over the internet, but I don't think this is a position that they had before this.
as far as offering Brian the inventory, have you gone through the store, figured out what was part of his collection, taken inventory and shown him that inventory to offer that?
So again, yeah, as this,
Look at the body language. His eyes darted up and he was looking around, right? Note all those things because those go a lot towards where their position is coming from. I think they're definitely panicked and they're definitely beaten on this one.
situation unfolded, and as additional investigations have continued to evolve so we could find out where there was a miscommunication, there was some initial findings and discovery of hey, these seem to match some of the things that were being stated, but we don't have any indication otherwise. We were able to determine some other indicators later, and so all of those were set aside to say, hey, these may match. So let's set them aside in case he can, we can work together. Those then were offered to him, and the initial offer was rejected. But then as we've continued, we've found additional documentation that shows where there were separate sets of books and spreadsheets being kept between, or from the former franchisee. And so as those things have come to light, we've tried to share those with Mr. Mansell in hopes that he can see, that we were not attempting in any way, shape, or form to withhold anything that we could verify, and that we do want to help him recover as much of the collection. Now, the initial number was, promotional, but the actual factual information shows that the value of the more realistic value of the collection was closer to about $100,000, which is what the documentation that we've been able to determine that both parties to that consignment agreement kind of had an understanding between.
Okay, let's stop there for a second. First of all, he uses a lot of corporate weasel words or like indicators. Corporate people love their indicators. Oh, the indicators and this and that. He threw documentation in there as well. But then he goes and tries to make this whole point about the number. Okay, it's really 100,000, not 200,000. Okay, listen. Reckless Ben is a YouTuber, and I'm going to tell you something as a fellow YouTuber out there. And also, if you just look at the news is always going to use the biggest possible number. When I cover a case that, let's say, involves a criminal act, right? That criminal act can have, let's say, a punishment between 5 and 10 years. So it is not deceptive to put that this could be up to 10 years, even if that person ends up getting sentenced for 5 or maybe getting probation, right? It's not deceptive, but that's the way the news is. The news puffs things up. We on YouTube puff things up too. That's how things go. But at this point, they're honestly, for the company, on a corporate basis, there is not a big difference between 200K and 100K in terms of how much damage you've taken from PR, bad press, etc. Right? This is a situation where you shouldn't be crying and whining and trying to point out and nickel and dime. Also, with valuation of items, we know that things can swing wildly. I used to play Magic the Gathering back in the day, and we all know that cards can have a mint value and they can have a used value. So trying to argue that is really, really splitting hairs. I think it's unnecessary pettiness that they're trying to inject here, and I don't think it's appropriate.
Each other that was the actual real value.
So you dipped a bit into this new statement, and this concerns the previous owner of the franchise on the Kaiser branch. So tell me a little bit about what you guys found.
So, our franchise operates on the buy-sell trade model for Lego. We love Lego and everything that it stands for. And so, but we know that consignment agreements can be very difficult. And so we make sure that in our operations manual, through all of our training, we train all franchisees that consignment is not part of our model.
The Mansells aren't aware of the agreements between corporate and franchise. That's very, very common. And if they entered into this situation, well, then you need to go in here and rectify that, right? You need to go in there and act, because a person who's entering into an agreement with a franchise owner would assume the franchise owner is acting in good faith, right? In most parties, you can assume, you say, okay, well, I assume you're acting in good faith. I assume you reviewed everything on your side of this deal. They have no way to know. The Mancells had no way to know what Bricks and Minifigs may or may not have in their contract with the franchise. And by the way, we don't even know if this is true or not. I haven't seen the full franchise contract between Bricks and Minifigs and the franchisee. I would love to see that franchise agreement, the full thing, the signed, executed copy, all of that. That would be great to actually see that, whether or not they're lying on this one. This is them trying to once again play that silly game between corporate and franchise, and it's not going to work. You have to take responsibility.
And then it appears that may not have been honored with the person that she had entered into that consignment agreement with. And then through other circumstances, we ended up retaking over that store. And in the shuffle, there appears to have been just some confusion as to how, why, and where some of this came about. And as we tried to figure that out, we started uncovering more documents, more information. And
there we go, guys. Documents. It's always documents, right? But this is what you have to really pay attention. They're trying to pretend like they did all this work and discovered it. But we know that they had an instinctive reaction just to bury this. They had an instinctive reaction to trust people that were being dishonest, to not believe the Mancells, right? We know that's exactly what happened. They weren't deeply searching their documentation at first. They were stonewalling. That was their tactic.
And what we found was that there were 3 separate sets of records that were being kept that shows that Mr. Mansell was significantly underpaid by that former franchisee. And so we've been trying to make sure.
So they've confirmed it. They've essentially come out and confirmed that he was not paid what he should have been paid. Thank you. It took so long for them to come out and frankly say, and look how even in this statement, he's so cowardly as to bury this deeper within the interview, right? To say he should have been paid this, he wasn't paid this. Come out up front and admit it. Come out in words like he was not paid, he should have been paid, this should have been made right. We're very sorry, right? But they're still trying to maintain this side of it, which I think is very disingenuous. I think that should have been something they should come out and make that apology to the Mancells, and also the acknowledgement that they are indeed owed, just something that's front loaded in the statement at this point to recover their PR. This is not doing a great job of recovering their public image.
Sure that we can properly do like a forensic accounting and make sure everything is being looked at properly so that we can work together to get that family resolution.
And we, for our part, will reach out to those parties as well. You mentioned a couple terms I want to get.
Well, the news is obviously reaching out for a different reason than for conflict resolution, right? I like how the news is just a little side comment about the news, where the news tries to say, oh, we're here to help. No, you're there for the drama too, guys. The news people are no better than the YouTubers. They like to think they are, but they're no better.
Into that the franchisee agreement was not honored. Does that mean you're saying Mr. Mansell was underpaid by the franchisee?
From what we can tell, yes.
See how the news had to push him to even give a clear answer there. He dodged that. He tried a little weasel jerk there. It didn't really work, so they had to call him out to be very clear. No, this person was wronged. You're saying that, right? That's almost like a lawyer with a deposition, right? But he was trying to avoid that. They've been trying to avoid that up until today. This is why this is such a game changer, and it's why it's so important. And also, if you guys haven't liked this video and subscribed, make sure you're subscribed and like the video. It helps out in the algorithm.
The documentation that we've been able to pull out from a couple of different sources indicates that more sets were sold than were reported to him, and from that unauthorized consignment agreement, but that.
So that actually gets Ben out of a lot of trouble here, because Ben was looking at, okay, is the use of the word theft, is that appropriate or not? Well, there you go. If, as he's saying right now, more sets were sold than were reported back, that's theft right there. That they're essentially, that's conversion, right? they're taking something, and it's also breach of contract and unjust enrichment, right? In terms of civil claims, right? So definitely unjust enrichment, breach of contract. But colloquially, the way that most normal people would talk about that, they could say, yeah, they're essentially stealing from him because they owe him this money. They were not paying for it. They were selling things and either not paying him or not giving him what he was owed. That is wrong. That is absolutely wrong, morally and legally.
The overall payments to him did not match what had been sold through the store under the previous franchisee.
Okay.
Boom.
I go this route.
Boom, you got it right there. Now, one last thing I want to bring up in this, because he does bring this up at the end after this concludes, is he does bring up the concept of suing Ben. And he does say that they are looking at potentially suing Ben. Also, I do believe they may be still working with law enforcement. And I will say this, and this is something that I will comment on to CEO Eamon McNeff of all of Bricks and Minifigs. It would not be smart to sue him. I think that would be absolutely stupid to do that. People on the internet will cover it. It will not look good. I will certainly cover it. And that will not look good for you guys. People will be absolutely dragging you on this for going after this guy hardcore and going after him with federal charges. I think going after him, calling up the feds, hopefully not trying to use any of your Mormon FBI connections for all the glowies and feds in the chat. I know you're out there, right? Joking with you guys, but there are feds out there. Watch the chat. Seriously, though, pressing any federal card charges, getting the FBI involved, I don't think it's going to be a good look. I don't think it's going to be smart. I don't think it's going to make Bricks and Minifigs look good. I think getting these things settled, getting these things resolved, getting this thing ended is probably for the best for everybody. Trying to go back and destroy Reckless Ben, I don't think that's going to profit Bricks and Minifigs at all. I think it'd be very stupid for their PR. So that's their statement. They're still, I don't think, coming out and apologizing enough. I don't think they're being clear. I don't think they're also saying, yes, this person was wrong. They're clearly waving the white flag, though. I want to know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next one.